Hello students, we have seen energy audits in our previous discussion, and in this discussion we see the HVAC energy audits. HVAC stands for heating, ventilation and air conditioning, and it also includes refrigeration. So I am serving at Girjabai Sale Institute of Technology at Karwar in Karnataka. So we will see the following things like what are the energy saving measures, how you classify them, some terms and definitions in HVAC, HVAC also it's called, then HVAC audit, then what are the components of VCRS systems, the pH diagram and TS diagram we will see slightly. Then we will discuss again about that centralized air conditioning system, how it works. So the components of centralized air conditioning like chillers, AHU, cooling towers, and how you find out the performance of these. Then part load performance of various compressors. We'll see cooling towers, a psychometric chart briefly we'll touch upon. Then types of HVAC systems, then vapor absorption machines, that is vapor absorption refrigeration system. Then we'll see a comparison between VCRS and VAM, compression refrigeration versus absorption refrigeration, and some measures in for energy conservation, cold storage, and the references. So regarding the audits we have seen, we are going to find out opportunities where we can save energy without compromising on the comforts or the output. And the report at the end when you are submitting, it should have some classification as to immediate or short term or long term investments. These immediate investments, immediate ones, options can be without any investment, like improving the operational efficiency of the plant and equipment, or some housekeeping tips. The short to medium term will have low investments, like you install some controls like occupancy control sensor, occupancy sensors and all, and then you have some small modifications you take or some process you change. And the large scale investment, they take long time, where you install or retrofit like energy efficient devices, some modifications you do in the product, or there is a shift in the technology. See, one report I just wanted to show you. This is from a commercial complex in Faridabad, very recently done. So this is an audit observation what they have made. They see the parameters what they consider. Like first was power factor. So they found out that power factor was nearly unity. So that is good. Second one was the operation of chillers, because they had central air conditioned building, so that the chillers are very efficient and the working hours is minimum. This is what they found. And then pumps also they found very efficient, energy efficient pumps, and already VFD has been installed. I think VFD technology we have discussed. Again, if possible, I'll discuss that in this. That is one of the energy saving devices introduced in energy like efficient for motors especially. And then you have lifts also, which are using the latest technology. Again, here that VFD comes into picture. And lighting also, they are used at LED lamps and solar renewable lamps, solar lamps they are used. But they still have some 36 watts tube lights and T5 lamps, and they have advised to replace this 36 watts and T5 tube lights with energy efficient LEDs. No big recommendations. So now let us look into the refrigeration system. What is 1 ton of refrigeration? So 1 ton of refrigeration just means that the rate of heat cooling which produces 1 ton of ice, that is 910 kg. That is the American short ton actually. That stands for 910 kgs. So it is converting this 910 kg of water at 0 degree centigrade to ice at 0 degree centigrade in 24 hours. So we have to remove heat, and for 1 kg of water at 0 degree centigrade, we need to remove 335 kilojoules of heat to convert it into ice. That is the latent heat of fusion. Here there is no change in temperature, no improvement in temperature, only latent heat. Temperature remains same. Okay, so 1 ton of refrigeration is 910 kgs into 335 kilojoules per kg divided by 24 hours into 60 minutes into 60. Sorry, this has to be 60. So that gives around 3.5 kilowatt. So 1 ton refrigeration is 3.5 kilowatt. That you convert, it becomes 3024 kilocalories per hour. Okay. Now, and again, the heat rate is nothing but mass into specific heat into delta T, mCp delta T, where this Q is the coolant flow rate, Cp is the specific heat, and delta T is the difference in inlet and outlet temperature of the chiller or evaporator. This TR is also known as chiller tonnage. So again I have given M into enthalpy drop, and so one more indicator is there, like kilowatt per ton. So what is the amount of power consumed by the compressor motor to produce 1 ton of refrigeration? So we require, as a energy efficient compressor, we require that the compressor consumes less power, less kilowatt, and produces more tonnage of refrigeration. In our academics, we study like COP, coefficient of performance, which gives, it is nothing but output by input. Output is the refrigeration effect in terms of kilowatt, and compressor work also in terms of kilowatt. And for VCRS, vapor compression refrigeration system, we have COP ranging from 2 to 5. So there is something called energy efficiency ratio. This is in the British thermal units. And because of this, there is something called ER coming up into picture. But in our academics, we teach only like COP. Now we shall look into the HVAC audit. Like we'll find out what are the needs of the HVAC system, how the energy is being used, and each component, what are the components, and how you can improve the system performance and any energy utilization. So how much does the HVAC system consume? Where and when its energy use is heaviest and the lightest? What are the areas and equipments which cause the most energy loss? And again, the age of the equipment, the type of the equipment, the technology, and safety and health risk. See, as we are discussing with energy audits, there are similarly safety audits conducted, environment audits conducted, fire audits conducted. So safety is also of paramount importance when you are doing this studies. So there is a possibility that you can save around 30 to 50% of energy in case it is properly designed, implemented, and managed. Like air quality and temperature regulation, condition of the HVAC system. So this HVAC audit report we need to submit to the managers. It is required to convince the top management why they should invest in the retrofits. If you suggest some ENCON, energy conservation measures, so why they need to invest? So and then what are the maintenance aspects and replacement costs? Because nowadays budgets have become very tight. So let us briefly look into the vapor compression refrigeration system on the pressure enthalpy diagram. I think this is what we have studied, like 1 to 2 is the evaporator. So here no temperature change, only the heat is absorbed by the evaporator and cooling cost. And in case of central AC, the water is cooled here, chilled water you produce. Then there is a compressor work from 2 to 3, where the pressure increases, temperature also increases. 3 to 4, again the heat rejected to the atmosphere by the condenser, and in case of centralized AC, it will again have a cooling tower also in conjunction with this condenser. And lastly 4 to 1, that is a throttling valve or expansion device, where the pressure is reduced and the temperature also reduced, but there is some small flash evaporation, and the inlet at 1 to the evaporator is not saturated liquid, but a small amount of vapor also is available there. So these are the 4 components: evaporator, compressor, condenser, and expansion valve. And this is the temperature PV diagram, but you can sorry, this is PV diagram. You can see the various temperatures like TH and TC. They are given in the different colors. Like red color is the hot temperature, and TC is the cold temperature, evaporator temperature basically. So two pressures are involved, that is condenser pressure and the evaporator pressure. And as you know, this inverted bell curve, this is like saturated liquid and saturated vapor line, and the central point is known as a critical, that apex point is the critical point. Now again we will discuss this centralized AC. Most of you are not aware of the centralized AC. This in the basement of the multi-story building you have something called chillers and pumps. Okay, the chiller, as you know, it contains all the evaporator, compressor and the condenser. Okay, here only the cooling tower is kept on the top of the building because it is rejecting heat to the atmosphere. Now this chiller is producing chilled water, say around 6 to 8 degrees centigrade, which is passed through the pumps and it goes to the various floors of the building. Whatever the number of floors, it sends the chilled water, and in this this chilled water in turns this cools the air, and this air is supplied inside this spaces by the air handling unit known as AHU. So this is where you have one more loop, that is a chilled water loop in this centralized air conditioning. And for heat rejection also, from the condenser you have one pump which sends the water to the cooling tower, and here the heat is rejected to the atmosphere and the water returns back to the condenser, because they are basically water cooled condensers. Now what are the measurements you take for the HVAC systems? Like you have measure the temperature of water and air. So you use IR guns, you have got contact thermometers also are available. Then water flow measurements, like inflow measurement device you can install, or you can use a ultrasonic flow meter, they are non-contact flow meters. Then for air handling units, the air movement, to estimate the quantity of air, you use an anemometer. Then you have got pressure gauges for inlet and outlet of the discharge of the compressor. Then power factor meter, power meters. Then for psychometric property you have like psychometer to find out the dry bulb temperature as well as the wet bulb temperature of the ambient air. Then the power consuming devices what we see in the central VCR system are compressor, chilled water pumps, cooling tower fans and the condenser pumps. But the compressor is the major device which consumes almost 60% of the power here. And this is a central AC loop what I was discussing. So to the extreme left you have got that chilled water coming, and it is giving away that is in turn cooling the air and supplying it to the indoor. The left side is the air is for the indoor comfort conditions. Then this evaporator you have seen, condenser is there which we regular study, and last you have got one more cooling tower. After the condenser we are supplying the slightly warm water to the cooling tower to dump the heat into the atmospheric air. So these are the loops, like indoor air loop, chilled water loop, refrigerant loop, condenser loop and the cooling tower loop. And in centralized air condition we have these two extra loop, like indoor air loop and the cooling tower loop, whereas in our normal domestic air conditioner what we use, we have only the refrigerant loop and the condenser loop. Now this chiller, central air conditioner, like chillers, they are called as chillers basically, which constitute the evaporator, compressor and the condenser and expansion valve. So here we need to measure the water flow rates, then the compressor gas, refrigerant like suction and discharge pressure, power consumption of the compressor, and we find out the criteria as I was telling, that the input kilowatt per ton of refrigeration. What is the amount of, like in our bikes we know, we say 1 liter it gives 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers. So similarly, what is a kilowatt per ton? So this is one yardstick to measure the efficiency of the compressor. And then pumps are there. So pumps, you will have the suction and discharge head, you can measure. Then power consumption. Then you have different pumps for chilled water and condenser water pumps. And generally there will be benchmarking and you compare with the latest available standards. Then comes the air handling unit, which ultimately supply the cold air to the occupants in the building. So you measure the airflow, your relative humidity, then supply air temperature, return air temperature, chilled water inlet and outlet temperature through the cooling coil, then energy consumption of the AHUs, examination of the air handling units, AHUs for air delivery capacity, then temperature patterns, pressure drop, then the actual tonnage of AHUs and the measurement of operating zone temperatures under which each unit, because all the units are not ideal, and sometimes you will have some hot zones and slightly warm zones and slightly cooler zones in all high-rise buildings. So you can just see one diagram of this AHU, like simple. This is the colored is a simple diagram. Outside air is coming, so it passes through some dampers. Then there are filters. Okay. Then in case heating is required, then heating coil is there, the red one. And then blue color is the cooling coil, and this cooling coil you get the chilled water from the chiller from the bottom. And if required, a reheating coil again also is there. And then there is centrifugal fan which sucks the outside and sends it inside the right side. It is sending inside the conditioned space. Okay, but here if you use only the outside air, that the heat load will increase and the power consumption will increase. So we also recirculate the used air, and just to meet the fresh oxygen requirement, we take some portion through the outside, but majority of the portion, around 3/4, is recirculated. So here the bottom diagram you can see, here you have the red color is again heating coil, blue is the cooling coil, supply air fan, this sucks the air, and the conditioned air, again the conditioned air is again recirculated. Some amount is sent out, dumped out, but majority of that comes back to the again conditioned space after cooling, and we take some amount of the outside air. You can see top side the air is entering, and bottom side the air is being exhausted, some 20% or so. So cooling towers are there. Again, various types of cooling towers are there. There is big technology involved in that. So there are fans for cooling towers. Of course, these are not like power plant cooling towers which they have that hyperbolic structure. They are like natural draft cooling towers. But most of the air conditioners, central air conditioners, what you use, they are not natural draft. They are forced draft or induced draft, where you use electricity to drive the fan and create the draft. So we'll check the water flow rate, the air flow rates, the dBT, WBT, the temperature, RH and all. So what is the range and approach and effectiveness of a cooling tower? I think we'll see it in the next coming slide. So this is how physically a chiller looks like, the basement of the building. You can see the huge chiller. And I think this I was discussing the various types of compressors. So you can see at 100% load, the x-axis 100% load, all the compressors are having same efficiency or same ER, but that is around almost 5. But when at part load, they vary. So that is why when you are designing a system, you need to have the various types of compressors are used, like a screw compressor, scroll compressor, high efficiency screw compressor, and oil-free centrifugal compressor. So you have to choose the proper size of compressor. And this is a diagram of a cooling tower. Warm condenser water comes to the top. You can see the red color falls down. There is film. This is a media, film media, and the cold water is taken from the bottom. There is a small pump for circulation, and this air enters. The cool air enters from the bottom, and it picks up the heat, and the warm air is vented out from the top. And you have got a fan on the top, which will induce the draft. So in physically, if you see multi-story buildings, so this is like taken from Google, like how the cooling towers look. You can see there are 6 cooling towers at the rooftop of a skyscraper. This is how they look. And now, what is in the cooling tower? What is the range, approach, and effectiveness? The three terminology used. Simple. It is range is the hot water inlet temperature as well cold water temperature going out. So in and out the difference. So around 5 to 6 degrees will be the range. So the water will be cooled by this range. Then what is the approach? The approach is the difference between the cold water outlet temperature from the cooling tower to the wet bulb temperature. This difference should be very less. The range should be high, but the approach should be less. And then comes effectiveness. Effectiveness is nothing but the ratio of the range divided by the range plus approach. So we should have less approach and more of range, so that we can say the cooling tower is more effective. Then I think you have a good discussion on pumps also. So I not like to just I'll tell you the pumps. One thing is that the initial cost of pump, especially the heavy duty pumps used in industries, which run almost round the clock, the initial cost is almost 8 to 10%. But the running costs are very high. The running cost high, and the initial cost is only 8 to 10%. But if you are around 8,760 hours in a year. If you are running it around the year, then just you can imagine what is the amount of energy used. And for pump also, the pump efficiency depends on not only pump efficiency, motor efficiency, piping efficiency, and the footwall efficiency. So you have to take care of the proper footwall, the minimum amount of suction, and discharge should be there. Unnecessary high pressure discharge should not be there unnecessary. And the pump selection also is a huge subject, and I think you will be studying this in the discussions to happen. Then this psychometric chart, I think a very simple psychometric chart, multicolor chart I could find in the net. So the x-axis shows the dry bulb temperature right from 0 to 50 degrees centigrade. This is what we operate in. And then y-axis 5, 10, 15 to 35. This is the grams of water per kg of dry air. That is known as specific humidity. Then you have this red line with 5, 10, 15 degrees. These are the this is a saturation line, where means the air maximum 100% of moisture, whatever it can hold, is available there. That is fully saturated air, which cannot take any further amount of moisture, and that is why it is having a curved line, you can see, and there is nothing beyond that. So that is the max. So you can see at 5, if you just look at 5 degrees centigrade and 35 degrees centigrade, you see that 5 degrees centigrade, the amount of moisture each can hold is only 5 grams per kg of dry air. Whereas at 35 degrees centigrade, you can see it holds almost 35 grams of water. So as the temperature increases, the moisture holding capacity of the dry air increases. And this green lines, what you can see, these are wet bulb temperature lines, and the blue color lines like 10%, 20%, 30% is written. This is all the relative humidity lines. So the x-axis relative humidity is 0, and the red color line, saturated line, the relative humidity is 100%. So in between it is divided. So these are the specific humidity, relative humidity lines. So you need to have proper understanding of this. And this 10-20 slant on the slant line up to 110, what they are written, these are all enthalpy. These are all per kg. Yeah? These are all specific enthalpy per kg of dry air. Just one idea how this cooled, like from condition 1, outdoor condition, to the indoor comfort zone. So comfort zone normally lies between some 22 to 25 degree, 27 degrees centigrade now, and the relative humidity should be somewhere between 40 to 60%. You can see here. So it is cooled to saturation. Then because at 1, you can see the moisture is around more than 21 grams of water per kg of dry air. But at condition 3, what you are having, there you want only 10 grams of moisture. So you have to remove that 10 to 11 grams of water from the air. So you are cooling it to the saturation line, so that the water gets condensed. We get to the dew point temperature, water gets condensed, that is dropped off. Yeah, I think even in your normal AC also, or window AC or your split AC, you can find that there is condensation in the evaporator, and that liquid condensate is thrown out. Okay, so that amount of moisture has to be removed. And again, because it has come to lower temperature, say 15 degrees, now then reheating is required to from 15 to 25. So this again heating, cooling, dehumidification and heating. So I think symbolically it is depicted here. Outside was 35 degrees centigrade and relative humidity of 60%. So first it is cooled to remove the moisture, then it is again heated, reheated. Okay, so ultimately you are getting 24 degrees indoor air with 53% of moisture. So this is how the AC works. Then you have different types of systems. Like I was telling, comfort AC was 20 to 25. Now they, because of COVID times, they are now talking about 25 to 30 degrees centigrade. And chilled water system, say 8 to 10 degrees centigrade, chilled water is supplied. And the brine, in case of ice making, what if you have seen ammonia plants, then there is some sub-zero application. So that is why this water will freeze. So they put salt in it, sodium chloride, and that solution is known as brine, which is exclusively used in ice making applications. You have VAM, vapor absorption machines, and vapor compression refrigeration system. So the classification is 0 to 50 ton rating is small, 50 to 250 ton rating is medium capacity, and about 250 tons ratings are large capacity system. And just briefly we'll look into the vapor absorption refrigeration basically here. It is same like a vapor compression. The only thing is vapor there is compressed, here vapor is absorbed. So in vapor absorption refrigeration there is no compressor, and instead of compressor there are two devices which are added. You can see on the left side. One is the absorber, and on the top of that is the high pressure generator. Instead of compressor, these two are there. So the other things are same. The condenser is same, throttle valve is same, and the evaporator is same. Three things are there. Only compressor is replaced with absorber and high pressure generator. So this is used where you got waste heat is available, free heat is available, or solar energy is available. And this uses it is mostly dependent on heat energy, and it doesn't work on electricity. Some small amount of electricity is required just for pumping, and the pumping requirement are considerably low when compared to the energy required by the compressor. So here when the evaporator, the vapor comes, there are two types of system. One is lithium bromide system, and the second is ammonia water system. So when the refrigerant evaporates and comes, it is absorbed. In the absorber, it is absorbed. There is like a spray, and that refrigerant is absorbed. So these two, refrigerant and this absorber, they are very miscible fluids. So it is absorbed, and then it is pumped to the generator. Here in generator, simple that whatever waste heat is available or solar heat is available, that is supplied to the generator, and because the refrigerant has got a very low boiling point, the refrigerant vapor will go from the top, and it goes to the condenser and even cooling tower if required, and this condensed one is again throttled and sent back to the evaporator. So very simple system, but it looks simple, but in real life they are very complicated because some pressures are involved here. So this is VAM machine, which is I was telling lithium bromide, but the COPs are very low, say around 0.7 and all, whereas COP of a vapor compression is almost 5. So they can provide chilled water at around 7 degrees centigrade. So and they are used for high ton capacity, like 10 ton and up to 1500 ton capacity machines are there. I think Thermax is one of the company which manufactures this in India. And the operation cost is very low because it uses waste heat. So this is like various refrigerants used, R11, R12, these are all obsolete. R717 is ammonia. And then just to compare your vapor compression to the vapor absorption machines. Here vapor compression you use compressor, whereas absorption you use vapor heat energy is used, like waste heat or any solar heat energy is used. Then VCR electricity is a must because compressor consumes energy and it runs on electricity. But here electricity is absolutely not required. The little amount of energy electricity which is required, it can be used by taken from solar PV also. Okay. Then here all refrigerants, all types of refrigerants are used, but in vapor absorption machines only specific refrigerants which have that miscibility, like lithium bromide and water and ammonia water. These two are very popular. Vapor is compressed here, in here vapor is absorbed and then heated. Okay. Compressor makes a lot of noise here, no moving parts. Small pump is there, it is a very quiet operation. And these are only 1000-ton capacity maximum. But here, as I told, this vapor absorption 50 ton and above, even beyond 1000 tons refrigeration, these are used. COP is very high, 2 to 5, whereas the COP is very low actually, even less than 1. The part load efficiency suffers, but here no much effect on part load efficiency again. And these are used for domestic, like when your fridge, you have got your house AC is there, ATM AC, the industrial application, but these are mainly used for food storage and industrial application. So you can see, I think I have got this Thermax absorption chiller, the figure as I can see, you can see some specification here. These are leading manufacturer of vapor absorption chillers in the world, and this is a Pune based company. It is high absorption, high COP equipment they have come out with. Now it's beyond 1.5. These are again comparing the different types of refrigerant, like various types of, like you see the compressor, it was telling this vapor compression chillers, you have reciprocating compressors, centrifugal compressors and screw compressors. Okay, and vapor absorption, of course, again you have single effect, double effect, half effect, triple effect, so many lithium bromide systems, and ammonia system is single stage system. So these are some details. I think this I have told you, you can watch it. It is a very big table, lot of parameters are involved in that. And as I was discussing, if you look at only two columns, first column and third column, you can see that if the evaporator temperature is increased right from minus 20 degrees to minus 10, 5, 0 and then 5 degrees, you can see the specific power consumption reduces. So normally we should always have more higher evaporator temperature. It is said that even 1 degree if your AC, if you set 1 degree extra, it can save almost 5% of power. So that is the thumb rule what is used. I think some new topics I wanted to just discuss, like heat pumps. The left side you can see the outdoor unit of a residential heat pump, not commonly used in India, but in cold countries it is extensively used. So it is very simple, like your AC, you have got an indoor unit and an outdoor unit. If you replace the indoor unit with the outdoor unit, you bring the outdoor unit inside and indoor unit keep outside, that becomes a heat pump. Means you are requiring heat energy inside. You require heat energy inside, that is called as heat pump. And for per kilowatt of electricity supplied, it will almost give you 4 to 5 kilowatts of heat. So the COP of heat pump is heat of refrigerant plus 1. So it is almost 5 to 6 times more efficient than resistance heating, and that is why these heat pumps are now catching up actually. It is also basically based on vapor compression refrigeration system itself. Then one more term I think you might have not studied, the heat transformers. Like you have seen the transformers, like distribution transformers outside on the roads. So they step up or step down the temperatures, voltages. Similarly, heat transformers are used because, see, as you know, heat energy, the higher the temperature, the better the grade of energy. Now, in certain conditions, how to increase the temperature, so that the heat transformers are used, and these are also basically they are using that vapor absorption refrigeration system principle only, and they are increasing the amount of heat. So this is also new terms catching up. I think Thermax is manufacturing this heat transformers. As I was telling, these industries consume a lot of energy. That is why they are focusing on reduction on the energy cost to become very competitive. Okay. Then some energy conservation measures in cold storage. So you should have proper orientation so that heat ingress is less, solar heat ingress is less. Compact arrangements of the chambers, shading of exposed walls. So people put a lot of trees and all so that exposed sun ingress, heat ingress is less. Then proper insulation should be there. Then refrigeration system should be working for optimum conditions like the condition of the evaporator and the condenser. Otherwise the energy consumption increases. Then the compressor should have capacity control to have savings. Like you have got fans in a home, you have got regulators. Likewise, you have regulators in the compressors also. Okay, when it's loaded, unloaded condition, it works. No? Then you have proper control systems. Nowadays, a lot of focus is going on control systems to see the refrigerant level, room temperature, compressor capacity, etc. And now, as I was telling you, have got even remotely you can access. Like now, there is something called Internet of Things. You are connecting technology and connecting. Things are becoming smart. So now these controls are also available on IoT. Then air curtain. I think I have seen one cold storage where the air curtain or the strip curtain, plastic strip curtain, that is also not proper. So a lot of cold air leakage was there. So that kind of thing should not happen. That you should take care. This is very simple common sense we can see. And nowadays a lot of heat recovery systems, waste heat recovery system is going on. So whatever heat we are dumping into the atmosphere, can we use it? This is so that we can produce some heat, hot water used for some applications. Then there are some measures like fuel substitution, energy. These are the general EC measures like cogenerations in sugar industries, fuel substitution means instead of using high grade energy like electric energy, even your vapor compression refrigeration systems use electrical energy. But if you replace a huge, say 1000 TR refrigeration unit, if you go for a vapor absorption machine, which is again using heat energy, I think then this is called a classical case of fuel substitution. And the operating cost of VAM machines are very low, and they are now picking up. The technology is also getting matured, and you will find in decades to follow a lot of these VAM machines will be used. And so we should see that the conditions are like technically feasible, economically viable. Then when you are suggesting any new technologies, you should see whether there is space is available, technology is mature enough, reliable technology like, and manpower is available to operate, maintain. Safety aspects have to be taken care of. Okay, then reliability of the new technology, services, availability of space, so maintenance requirements and all. See, just giving a suggestion is not the end in itself. You should see that the suggestion is very viable. And I think VFD, variable frequency drive, this I'll just like to touch upon this. Here you can see as an engineer you should understand this. So the x-axis represents the capacity percentage loading, where red line is the real curve, and the blue line is the VFD. If you install VFD, that is variable frequency drive. That is called also the VSD also, variable speed drive. So right side is the power percentage. You can see that 100% rated is okay. They are all same. But when the part load efficiency, then you can see the real requirement is very high. Even at 10% load, it is consuming 50% of the power. Whereas if you installed a VFD, so at 10% it is only 25% of the power required. So you can see almost 25% power is saved here. So these are very small devices. A lot of manufacturers are available now, and all these lifts, all heavy duty motors, they are using this power. These are known as VFD, variable frequency drives. These are electrical devices, and this is one of the technologies to save energy. Even compressors, for the compressor motor also they are using this VFD drives. So the reference is what I have taken. This is a Bureau of Energy Efficiency guidebooks, the 4 guidebooks one on general aspects, the second on thermal utilities, third on electrical utilities, and the last one is the energy performance assessment of equipment and utility system. So any questions, feel free to ask. This is my email ID, mane.suresh1304@gmail.com. Thank you and have a great day.